I'm just going to do a little overview of January and then talk a little bit of how I want my February to go. No goals to talk about in January, but I did read a few books, which is just a really sad part of history. But I loved reading the book. It was very insightful, very interesting. And then the only other book that I finished is actually a nonfiction book. I did complete my goal of reading at least one nonfiction this month. It has already been such a huge help to me. 25, which there are 40 chapters. So that, am I on chapter 25 of 40? Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do a little overview of January, and I plan to do these videos for each month because I want to look back at them at the end of the year, and I just think it'd be a good thing for me to have for myself, not necessarily for other people to watch. But I thought, why not, share to YouTube. Maybe I'll be a help to somebody else. But I wrote down a little list of the things I want to talk about. I don't want this video to be long. I know that I say that all the time and they always end up being like 30 to 40 minutes. But this one I really want to be short. So that is what my goal is for today. We will see if that'll happen. But I'm just going to do a little overview of January and then talk a little bit of how I want my February to go. Usually in these videos I will talk about my goals and if I achieved them or not, but I actually didn't really set January goals. I wasn't really making goals and things until well into January, and at that point I thought it was too late to really make goals, so I really didn't make any goals for January. I decided to just wait until February, but I did make some yearly goals, and there's a whole video of me talking about 2025 and making my 2026 goals, so if you haven't watched that yet, go ahead and watch that video. No goals to talk about in January, but I did read a few books in January, and so I'm going to talk about the books that I read in January. So the first book that I read, I started at the end of December, but I didn't actually finish it until January 3rd. And that was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. This is historical fiction that is talking about Georgia Tan, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, and the Tennessee Children's Home Society, which is just a really sad part of history. I had no idea that this was a thing, but it is so sad what that woman did, and that was allowed to go on, and all the people who knew she was doing it and just allowed it was really sad. But I loved reading the book. It was very insightful, very interesting, and I loved the intrigue all behind it. I was heartbroken at times reading the stuff that happened to these children. It's so awful, but I did enjoy the story and I learned so much, and so I do highly recommend it. I rated it 4.5 stars because I didn't care so much for the dual timelines, and one of the timelines I really didn't care for at all, but other than that, like, I would have given it 5 stars. It is really good. And then the only other book that I finished is actually a nonfiction book. I did complete my goal of reading at least one nonfiction this month, and that book is Restore My Soul, Reimagining Self-Care for a Sustainable Life by Janice McWilliams. And my mom recommended this book to me, and she actually let me borrow her copy, so thanks, Mom. I am so glad I read this book. This book was so good, especially for someone who overthinks, who deals with anxiety, and who just gets really stressed. I get stressed so easily, so it was just really great to read this book. I don't know, it was just so good. It has already been such a huge help to me. Even as I was reading it, I was practicing some of the tips that the author gives in this book, like whenever you have like an unhelpful thought, how to redirect your mind and things like that. It just was really good. At the beginning of the story, or at the beginning of the book, it talks about like self-care and the world's definition of self-care, and then her definition of self-care in a way, which really just is our thoughts, like taking care of our thoughts and handling our thoughts, which was so good and so needed for me. Something I didn't even realize I needed, but definitely did, and I'm so thankful for it and cannot wait to continue practicing the things that I learned in this book. It has just been so helpful. So I do highly recommend that book as well. And then I did start a book. I actually started an ARC book, which is The Sun on His Fangs by my friend Madeline Clive. I am so excited to be reading this book. I'm so close to being done. I do want to finish it before January. It is the 30th, so we have today and tomorrow, and I do hope to finish it in these 2 days. Let's see where I'm at right now. I'm on chapter 25, which there are 40 chapters, so that, am I on chapter 25 of 40? That sounds crazy. Maybe the last few chapters are short. I don't know. I'm on page 228 out of 285, and I'm 79% into the book. So I am close to being done, and I do plan on finishing this book before February ends, and then maybe I can give my full review of that book. I'm not going to go ahead and do that right now just because I haven't finished it, and it does deserve like my full review, I feel like, but I am enjoying it a lot. Hello, at this time I will talk about The Sun on His Fangs by Madeline Clive. I did end up finishing it on January 31st, so before we got to February, and I loved it so much. At the beginning of the book, there is a girl named Michelle, and she is very rebellious. She has grown up in the foster system, and so she just has kind of like a dark and a rough past. And so she does a lot of drinking, does a lot of partying until she gets into a car wreck and then kind of decides to turn her life around. It's not really by her choice per se, but her foster parents make her get a job, and she ends up getting a job at Red Cross. They supply blood and stuff, and that is where she meets Sunny, our male main character, who is a vampire. So can I just start off by saying I love Sunny? He's definitely my favorite character of the book. Him and Michelle kind of have like a slow burn romance going on. They become friends and then they become more in a way. It is very slow burn, and I just loved it so much. I loved whenever like the romantic things did happen. It was very well written, and the whole book is very well written. It's very fast paced and enjoyable to read. Like, it was very hard to put down because it was a very enjoyable book to read. It just has some very interesting things in it. It has a lot of like their Christian parents and the kids are kind of like trying to figure things out, you know, just normal life things. It has a lot of like just real life issues that we deal with. But then there's also vampires. So it's really fun. It does tackle a lot of those like real life issues that happen, like drunk driving and teenage drinking and smoking, things like that. Like just things that like happen in our day, but they're written in a way that calls it what it is, which is evil, you know? And you see a lot of those kind of things in secular books. You see a lot of drinking, you see a lot of things like that, but you don't see it in the way that it is written in this book. You see it glorified, and I really love that this is in Christian fiction because you get to see it how it truly is, which is evil. Anyway, it just tackles a lot of like the things that you'll see in this day and a lot of things that are glorified in this day, but it calls it what it is. And the whole book really does focus on that all people, everyone is evil and we need a savior. And I don't really want to give spoilers, but by the end you do get to see that a lot more light versus darkness and like God's redemption. You definitely get to see all of that by the end of the book, and it's just really beautifully written, and I loved it so much. I love those little romance that were thrown in there a little bit. I really wasn't expecting that. I know Madeline, and she's not a big romance fan. I'm sure she hated writing the actual romance, but I really did enjoy it so much and just thought it was really well written, and I was literally swooning. I was literally teary-eyed, and I don't cry during books, but I was teary-eyed. It was just really good. That said, I probably don't agree with everything in the book. I feel like there's not a single book that I can agree with every single thing written, but for the most part, like, I just really enjoyed the book. I thought it was really good. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I loved it so much, and I'm so glad I waited to give my full review, because if I would have given it at that time, I might have only given it like 4 stars. Not because I didn't like anything in the book, I just wasn't sure how I felt about it really. I'm not a huge fan of like vampires and things like that. It just wasn't really my typical genre at all to read. But by the time that I got to the end and like there was a big like once you got to that point, it really picked up. I really enjoyed it a lot and definitely knew I was going to give it 5 stars. Like, the romance was great. I just loved it all, and like I'm just so glad that I read it. I definitely recommend it, especially if you're a fan of like supernatural things, if you like Twilight and Vampire Diaries and just vampire related stories, especially if you want like a clean version of it that like has those Christian themes and isn't toxic, and you know, just all of the things that you get with a supernatural romance like that. And I wouldn't say that this is really a romance book, but there is a little bit of romance in it, but it just is a much better option in my opinion, and I just really enjoyed it so much. This is going to be a duology, so I literally cannot wait for book 2. I think it's going to be so good, and I am so happy. I cannot wait to see what else Madeline writes, because she's just really good at what she does, and I know she just has so many good ideas. So I can't wait to read more of her work in the future, and I'm so thankful to be part of her ARC team. I hope that you. And I think for this video, that's all I have for January. But now, as we move into February, I want to talk about some of the books that I want to read for February. One of the videos that I want to film for February is spending a whole week reading romance books. I did that last year and it was a big hit on my channel, and I also just had a lot of fun. and it helped me to get more reading in. So I do plan on doing that. It might not happen before Valentine's Day, and that video might not be posted before Valentine's Day, but I still do plan on doing that video. And so there's a bunch of romance books that I want to read for that. And I do have an ARC read that I need to finish in February called Where I Stand by Emily Ann, and I'm very excited to read that book as well. So that's like the top of my list that I want to read. And then probably some romance books. And then the nonfiction that I want to read this month is going to be a marriage book, which I'm trying to decide between Love and Respect, which I still have my mom's copy of Love and Respect. I started it and then stopped reading it because there was something in the book that I didn't like, and then decided not to read it. But then my husband just finished reading that recently, and he said I should at least read one of the chapters in the book. And I feel like I can't just read that one chapter without reading the whole book, so I probably will read that whole book. But I'm between that book or a book that I just picked up at the thrift store yesterday. It's called The Meaning of Marriage by Timothy Keller. And I feel like I either know this author, or I've heard of this book, or I've seen this book or something, because it really stuck out to me whenever I saw it at the thrift store. And so I decided to get it. I might end up reading that book instead of Love and Respect. I might end up doing both of them this month. That's kind of ambitious, but you never know. So some of my goals for February is to read one marriage book. And then I definitely want to start being healthier in my diet and also working out again, because it's been so long since I've worked out and I really need to get on schedule with that again. So definitely working out at least 5 times a week, even if that's just a walk. Any extra movement that I do in my day that I don't always do counts as a workout for me. So I definitely want to implement those into my days more. And like, I also want to make a whole schedule of what I want my day to look like. And so I plan on doing that this month, and like really trying to prioritize my time, because I've been really bad at managing my time lately. And with all of the things that I have to do, I get really overwhelmed. And a lot of times when I'm overwhelmed, I honestly just forget everything. I have a whole to-do list of things to do, and instead of like picking one and doing it, I get so overwhelmed that I do none of it and just doom scroll for hours, and that is a horrible habit. And so I really want to do better at making like to-do list, prioritizing what's the most important thing, and scheduling my days a little bit better so that I'm doing something productive every day. And even like on the days that I babysit, making sure that I am prioritizing my time so that it's not like too overwhelming. I don't know. I think you understand what I'm saying though. I really just want to do better at prioritizing my time and managing my time. And so making a schedule of what I want my day to look like, not a strict schedule, but just something I kind of want to follow, will be so helpful. So that's something that I plan to do this month as well. And then also part of being healthy as well is obviously cooking healthy meals. And I've been so bad at cooking lately. I've been so, like I said, overwhelmed and stressed. And so I've decided to just not cook, and that is a horrible habit, and I definitely need to break it. I've been doing much better at staying on top of the dishes, which helps to be able to cook, because if I see dishes in the sink and in my kitchen, automatically do not want to cook dinner, because that means I have to clean the dishes, or I have to add more dishes to the already dirty dishes, and I just do not want to do that. So staying on top of my dishes has been so helpful. And then also meal planning. And so yesterday I went grocery shopping, and I hoped maybe to do a whole video of like my meal planning and then like cooking healthy meals. I think that'd be such a fun video to look back on. So I do hope to do that. There's a big chance that I won't, because there's just so much content I want to film this month, and my camera can only hold so much storage. It is fighting for its life when I'm trying to film all these videos. So there is a chance that that video might get neglected, but I at least am going to do that whether I record it or not. I did at least 2 weeks worth of meals whenever I grocery shopped, like the things that I need for 2 weeks of meals, and then wrote a list of those meals. I haven't actually like decided which day I'm going to make each meal, and I don't know if I'll even do that. I might just like pick the day before what I'm going to make tomorrow, but I'm really excited about that. That should help me a whole lot with meal planning and not being so stressed about what to cook for dinner that night. And then my last little goal, well, kind of my last goal, is not to eat out, because that definitely has been something that we have done because we don't have food and I haven't been making dinner. And even like just going to Family Dollar and picking up like a frozen pizza or like frozen chicken, we've done that so much, and that kind of food is also not very healthy for you, and is also like just so expensive, and it just would be so much cheaper if I just cooked with the ingredients I already have. And so one reason I have that goal is to be healthier in that way and not eating out. And then also because I won't be spending as much money, and I definitely want to keep saving up my money because I want to buy a new laptop soon. and I also wasn't able to work as much this last week because of all the snow. So I need to save up money, and so that means not going out as much, not eating out and spending money on that, and not going to Family Dollar every week to buy those processed meals. I know that'll just make everything so much better if I just cook meals at home. And so that is all for this video. I know this was probably kind of short compared to my other videos especially, but I really did just want to like really quickly explain some of that stuff because I don't know, I just feel like it'll be fun to look back on in the later months and then also like next month to see how well I did. And so these videos are just for me mostly, just to see like how I'm doing on my goals, and then also just having a little reflection of my past month and setting goals for the next month. And sometimes the best way for me to accomplish those goals is for me to actually say them out loud so that I'll be more determined to do them. And so I'm going to actually work in my bullet journal and like make some spreads so that that can help me to accomplish these goals. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stick around for some of my other content. I will see you next time. Bye.